Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm drawing two of my viewers' Gacha characters. It's been a handful of months since the last time I did this, and many of you have been requesting I do it again, so here we are. I made a YouTube short and social media post announcing I'd be doing this again, and a ton of you submitted your characters for me to draw. A lot of times I'll randomly pick characters, but this time around I chose the characters myself. I wanted to pick characters that inspired me to draw an illustration, so let's see who I picked first. This character is created by Ginger. Her name is Brianna and she is 13 years old. Brianna is a fun-loving and adventurous girl. She can be lazy and insensitive sometimes, but she's a nice person. Her animal companion Honey often has to try to convince her to stay out of trouble. Together, Brianna and Honey meet new people from all over the world. So let's start drawing Brianna and Honey. In case you didn't see last week's video, I've been away from work and haven't drawn much recently. Because of this, for this first illustration, I wanted to go with something kind of simple to help me get back into the swing of things. At first, I'm drawing out my idea using the full canvas, but things kept feeling really off, so I decided to scrap all that and draw another sketch, but this time much tinier. I'm not totally sure why this helps, but a lot of times I find it easier to sketch out my ideas smaller and then upscale them to do the cleanup. I think it might be because at the smaller size, it's easier for me to take in the entire sketch and see it all at once. Also, because it's small, I can't get hung up on all the little details. Like I said, I'm going with a pretty simple concept. I'm doing a bust-up shot. Brianna is turning her head towards us. The left arm is going a bit out, and the right arm is going up and bending at the elbow. I'm going to put her hand in a peace sign pose next to her face. I wanted something kind of cute and playful feeling. And of course she will have her friend Honey next to her. Thankfully I liked this sketch way more than the first one, so I upscaled it and began working on cleanup. Also, if you haven't seen last week's video, I recommend watching it. I show my new office and my new drawing setup. I'm still getting used to my new tablet. Thankfully as time goes on, I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. At first I was going to have Brianna just smiling, but because her description describes her as often getting into trouble and that she's very lively, I thought I should try drawing an expression with a bit more personality. I decided to have her stick her tongue out, and she will also be closing one of her eyes to wink. I thought this change gave the picture a lot more personality compared to just a smile. Something I did try for this picture is a different nose shape. I've been wanting to try to play around with different ways of drawing facial features. I will slightly change the nose between drawings, but a lot of times it's still within my same kind of generic nose that I draw. And a lot of times I only really significantly change the eyes and kind of forget about the other features. But drawing different noses, mouths, lips, ears, and so on is something I'm wanting to try to do more of. I chose to draw Brianna because I really like her color scheme. I loved the pops of yellow in her design, and the character overall is really cute. Right when I saw her, I just thought she looked really fun to draw. But that doesn't mean there wasn't also a lot of other characters that looked fun to draw. I spent so much time looking through hundreds of submissions trying to decide who to draw. Because I did take a break from drawing for a couple weeks, I was a bit worried about drawing again, but thankfully things were going decently smooth. I was happy with how this hand turned out, but I think it helped that I drew Samson's hand in the same kind of pose not very long before I worked on this picture. I feel like I should try to draw other hand poses. I do tend to default to this hand pose. It's such an easy one to use with so many different poses. Also, I added fingernails again. Fingernails are something I sometimes add and sometimes I don't. It just depends on my mood, I guess. But I also wanted to give her yellow nail polish to add more yellow. Her hair was a very different style from what I often draw, so I was both excited and a bit nervous to draw it. I was mostly nervous about rendering the super curly part in the back. A lot of times if I draw really curly hair, it isn't fully rendered, but my plan was to render it this time around. But I wasn't totally sure how I was going to go about doing that. Also, Honey was so fun to draw. I feel like I don't draw much for just simple little cute things, even though I always really enjoyed drawing them. In last week's video, I recorded my tablet screen with my camera, and many of you said you liked that view, so I decided to record some of this footage in that way, and we're going to be switching over to that. For this footage, I'm working on the line art. I'm not going to show you all of the footage, but instead we'll be showing some slower footage that isn't ridiculously sped up. I kind of like showing this slower footage at times because it allows all of you to see how long things actually take me. With social media and editing, it can make art look like a really quick and easy process when a lot of times it isn't. So by showing you the slower shots, it shows you what it's a bit more like in real life. But I do edit out when I redraw lines a whole bunch of times, just because it can be frustrating to watch. It's like, just decide on a line, just pick one. I'm going to say this so that I hopefully remember it next time, but when I'm recording my screen during the day, I should turn the brightness up. When my room is dark, this brightness works fine, and off camera, it works just fine for me. But on camera, it looks pretty dark because the room is brighter. So yeah, I should turn the brightness up next time so it's a bit easier to see things. Oh, also, for the hair, to get the shape of it, I downloaded a few different curly hair brushes and used a variety of them to make the shapes. I wanted to focus on the overall shape for now, and I'll worry about details during the shading process. For the background, I'm keeping it simple and using this hexagon pattern that I will set to yellow. It was a bit short, so I had to copy it and line it up with the copy of the original. I chose this to mimic honeycomb and kind of keep with the yellow bee theme. Now it's time for shading and coloring. Like I said, I'm keeping things a bit more simple for this picture, so I'm going with a very standard lighting situation. I'm starting out by applying some cell shading that I will blend out a bit later with the blending tool. Right now I'm focusing on defining the darker shadows and their forms to help me get a better idea of the lighting. I wanted the shadows to feel vibrant and have a pop of color, so I'm using a fairly saturated pink for the shadows. And it's set to multiply. Also, I was glad that I remembered this time to make the palm of the hand lighter. I always tell myself to remember this detail when drawing characters with darker skin tones. But then when I start to color, I almost always forget. But I didn't this time, so yay! I always need to find a balance when adding the lighter color though. I don't want it to just look like a highlight. Once I had placed all the cell shading, I went around the edges with the blending tool to help soften the edges up. I have found I really like the look of the shadows when I do this. It's a really small detail, but I feel like it helps change the feeling of the shadows. I also lock the transparency of the shadows and add different colors with a soft brush to make them more interesting. I'll add a darker purple, lighter blues, and a lot of times other colors that are present in the picture. I really like doing this because it makes the picture feel really colorful. Now I can go in and add the softer shading. I do this for rounder forms in areas that I don't want to define as much. I especially do this on the face so I can define the forms of the face in a soft way. Sometimes I will define the features in a more harsh way, but I wanted the feeling for this picture to be very soft, so I tried going for a softer look with the shading. I've been back into working for about a week and a half now, and I'm starting to get more into a rhythm. I mentioned in last week's video that I'm trying to get used to being on my own more. It's still very quiet at the apartment, but I'm getting more used to it. One of the things that often kind of bothers me more is I basically don't talk for like the whole day. I'm just silent, except if I'm recording audio like now. But I found that doing some singing kind of helps this feeling of like I haven't been talking go down. It also helps keep my vocal cords active. So I've kind of been singing as I work. But I may also be feeling better because I got to hang out with my family the last couple of days. We had different family gatherings, so it was fun hanging out with everyone. And I also got to watch 3 episodes of Miraculous Ladybug with my siblings. And I swear that show just keeps getting more and more crazy. Oh, okay, I want to talk about the hair here. So to start, I took one of the curly brushes and added in some lighter curls. I was doing this randomly and with some different brushes, mostly to just add texture. Then to help the outer shapes kind of blend in with the rest of the hair, I went in and added some highlights that I will fade out around the lower edges with a soft brush. I feel like this helped make the outer and inner texture feel more cohesive. Hopefully it looks okay. Like I said, a lot of times I don't render super curly hair, but I'm trying my best. Lastly, to add some depth, I added more darker curly bits. I was trying my best to not make the hair go too shiny. A lot of times really curly hair doesn't look as shiny because of all the texture, so I was trying to keep that in mind. Oh, also, I forgot to say that I'm now married and live with my husband. I made a whole video on this last week, but in case you missed that, you now know. So yeah, that's why I'm talking about getting back into work and being alone and stuff. Sorry I didn't think to mention it till just now. But yeah, like I said, you can watch last week's video if you want to know everything. Also, random fact, yellow or gold eyes are one of my favorite colors to work with. I always really enjoy purple eyes as well. I don't know, for some reason they are both just really fun colors to work with for eyes. It's one of the reasons I gave Samson yellow eyes and Finley purple eyes. I just wanted a reason to work with those color eyes more often. So here's the finished picture of Brianna and Honey. I loved getting to draw both of them. They are so cute. Thank you so much for letting me draw them, Ginger, and I hope you like the picture. Next, we will move on to the second character, but first I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes that cover all kinds of topics. Whether you want to learn the basics of watercolor painting or learn how to start your own creative business, Skillshare has classes to take you from beginner to pro alongside a supportive community. Looking for ways to up-level in your career or start a new side hustle? Skillshare has classes in freelancing, entrepreneurship, marketing, social media, UI/UX, productivity, and more. A class I'm interested in is Find Your Style, 5 exercises to unlock your creative identity by Andy J. Pizza. This fun and inspiring class lays out 5 hands-on exercises that will unlock your artistic identity. Working in your medium of choice, you'll explore who you are and what you have to say. Then put it all together in your own personal style guide. Want to unlock your creativity and learn something new? Well, the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. You literally get access to all of their classes for a whole month. You can even check out my class on there. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to drawing. The next character I'm drawing is named Leo, and he's 16 years old. Leo loves skateboarding and can be a bit reckless. He started skateboarding when he was 10 years old after meeting new friends at school in a new city. So let's start drawing Leo. Because I did go with something more simple for the first picture, I wanted to do something a bit more outside my comfort zone for this one. I wanted to draw a kind of dynamic skateboarding pose. I've never skateboarded before. I have attempted to stand on one, but that's about it. My knowledge of skateboarding is also really low, so I had to rely heavily on reference pictures for this piece. I spent a long time finding reference pictures on Pinterest for this picture. The pose I decided on for this is that Leo is in a kind of squatting position and is leaning forward and grabbing the bottom of the skateboard. This pose is already kind of tricky to draw, but another thing making it tricky was the perspective. I wanted our view to be below Leo, that way it helps give the feeling that Leo is kind of moving through the air. This also feels cooler than just looking at the pose straight on, but this also makes the shapes more complicated because I have to think about perspective and foreshortening. To help give a feeling of depth, I made the objects towards us larger and the objects away from us smaller. Like if you compare the hand that is holding the skateboard to Leo's head or the other hand, you'll notice that the hand is drawn pretty large or larger than how it's usually proportioned. This helps give the feeling of depth and like the objects are actually coming closer to us. This is why I often find poses like this hard to draw. I'm always scared to veer away from more proper proportioning and allowing myself to try to stylize things for the feeling of the picture. The rule follower of me wants to make the hand the same size as the face like I usually do, but to get the feeling I want, I need to not follow that. I need to make the hand bigger, but then the question is, how much bigger do I need to make the hand that's coming close to us? And I wish I had an answer for that, like you upscale the hand this much based on blah 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 blah. But for me, it usually just comes down to feeling and instinct. I kind of just keep playing around with things until it feels okay. I just don't want things to look super deformed or like super out of proportion. Also, like I said, I know basically nothing about skateboards, so to help me out a bit, I brought in a 3D model of a skateboard. This will also help me not make the skateboard super wonky. I was really happy I brought this in, it helped a ton, especially when it came to getting the curves of the skateboard correct. After my cleanup sketch, it didn't feel quite clean enough, so I did another one to make sure I was happy with everything and to make the line art process easier. If I don't clean up my sketches enough, a lot of times the line art process is harder, so I prefer cleaner sketches. I'm not showing you the process for this other sketch since it's basically me just redrawing everything for like a third time. But now we are on to line art. Once again, I will only show you bits and pieces of this. I didn't record this part with my camera, but I did record some of the coloring with my camera, and we'll get to see that soon. So real quick here, I just want to take a moment to address something. My channel has been going through a rough period again, and numbers have been really low. Lower than they have been in a long time. And I know numbers shouldn't be like super important and stuff, but when you're doing this for a living, they are important to a certain extent. So I just want to take a moment to encourage you to subscribe if you're not already, give this video a thumbs up and give it a share. YouTube hasn't been pushing my videos like at all recently, so you may have missed some of my recent uploads, and you can also check them out as well if you have time. Doing these things really helps out the channel, and thank you so much for your support. So yeah, subscribe, leave a like, and share. Thank you. Anyways, back to the drawing. For the background, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I kind of just ended up piecing together this background that has a border and a kind of fun or funky pattern to it. I was thinking about doing an actual background, like maybe a city or sky, but I went with this since it had a very fun feeling to it. Now we are on to some of the footage from my camera, and like with the last picture, I'm applying my cell shading. Oh, also, I wanted to give you all an update on how drawing with my new tablet is going. I mentioned in last week's video that I'm not used to drawing on this large of a tablet. I'm also not used to using an Ergotron arm for positioning my tablet. Because of this, I was having to do some trial and error. For many of the drawing positions, they were kind of hurting my shoulder, but I didn't totally know if it was the position that was hurting my shoulder or the fact that I had to do more arm movement to draw on the larger screen. And well, after a while, I finally found a position that works well for drawing and doesn't hurt my shoulder, it seems. Everything has been pretty comfortable for the most part. I found that I just needed to angle the tablet more. I kept placing it too vertically. I also found that it helps if I lower my desk down a bit. And I still need to get an actual desk chair. For now, I just put a pillow on the dining chair, and that has also helped a lot. I keep meaning to grab a spare desk chair from my family's house, but I forgot to last time I was there. I want to see if I like office chairs before buying one. It may sound funny, but I get dizzy really easy, and I'm scared the subtle movements of the office chair will mess with my equilibrium. So I want to do a test run before buying a nicer chair. Oh, and here I made a simple design for the skateboard on a different long canvas and then brought it to this one and transformed the shape to fit the skateboard. This is a really easy way to get patterns or pictures to line up with the perspective of an object without too much headache. I'll often do it in my webcomic if I have characters have like some kind of logo or pattern on their shirt. I am really happy that many of you like the footage captured with my camera. I don't think I'll ever really switch over to recording the entire process with my camera in this way, unless it's something more quick and simple, like last week's picture. But I do like including some portions of footage in this way. I think it helps keep things interesting. But I do still really like the clarity of screen recorded footage. So at this point, I am coloring the eyes, and I had finished most of the shading. However, I wasn't feeling super happy with the coloring. It all felt pretty dull and not super interesting to look at. It wasn't horrible, it was just missing that pop that I was looking for. So I decided to go around the edges with pink and blue. I used pink on the left sides and blue on the right sides. I feel like adding this little touch of lighting to the edges really helped the different parts to stick out from each other. A lot of Leo's outfit is black, and it can be a bit hard to make different parts stick out when they are all dark. But by adding this lighting, I was able to help that. It also just made the picture feel more fun. Lastly, to make Leo feel like he has movement, I made a copy with all of his layers merged together, and motion blurred the copy, then erased most of it. But I kept it along the right side edges of him to help give the idea that he's moving. I definitely wanted this effect to be noticeable, but not overly apparent. I didn't want it to be too distracting or taking away from the picture. I didn't want him to be like a blurry blob. So here's the finished picture of Leo. It was definitely challenging and the pose really pushed me, but I also had a really nice time working on it. Leo was a very fun character to draw, and thank you to his creator for letting me draw him. Also, last minute, I remembered to add the blue to his hair. I almost forgot to. And thank you again to Ginger for letting me draw Brianna and Honey. Like I said, they're both so adorable. Well, that is all for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!